Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, welcome for the first time. My name is Cheryl, and today I'm here to bring you the top 5 disappointing books of 2016. And this list, I thought I was going to have a hard time coming up with because I was like, I don't think I've really read that many bad books this year. But then I got on Goodreads, and then I started looking at the books I've read, and I was like, oh nope, let's add this one, this one, this one. I was like, oh, this was actually a lot easier to come up with than my top 10 favorite books of 2016, so I don't know if that says something. But these books have stuck with me for one reason or another as the most disappointing books I've read this year. This list can alternately be titled Most of the Books I Hated in 2016 because some of these were just disappointments, but some of them I just straight up hated. So like my top 10 video, this one is in no particular order except for number 1. So without further ado, let's get into the books. Number 5 is Diary of a Haunting by M. Verano. I've talked about this book on my channel before. This book qualifies as one of the ones I hated this year. I read it, I didn't really know what I was expecting because I didn't know really much about it other than this was a Diary of a Haunting. This basically is a YA horror, I guess, novel that follows a young girl as she and her family move into a new house. Basically, weird stuff starts happening. This is told in the format of the main character's diary. She is just kind of talking about the weird events that happen around her, especially because she feels like she doesn't have anyone to talk to. But this book, oh boy. I thought about doing a full review even though it's been a few months since I've read it because I have a lot to say about this book. But basically, I feel like this book had potential. Yeah, it's not the most original idea, but I don't feel like we have that many YA horror novels. So it had potential, and it has a really cool cover because, if you look, this slips off, and ooh, so spooky. So yeah, this really had potential, but my god, the main character was so unbearably awful. She was so look at me, I'm a teenage girl, look at me, I'm trying to be relatable, but she was the whiniest, awful shit main character I think I have read about this year. I could not relate to her at all. I couldn't understand why she did or said or thought the things she did. And then her best friend that she made at school, she was like, oh, here, I guess I'll befriend the weird, awkward, quirky girl. And so, who was also just a stereotype. That girl who was supposed to be the goth girl of school, who was just ooh, I'm weird, I'm into the supernatural, let me just be your friend so I can be in your house. That's her only defining character trait. She really didn't have any characteristics other than the fact that she was weird. And so I had a lot of issues with the characters in the story. The biggest issue I have is with the plot twist at the end. It was so poorly done. This book probably would have been a fairly high rating, or a fairly average rating, excuse me, if not for this stupid plot twist at the end. I don't want to give it away just in case you want to read it, but it is ungodly awful. There was no reason for it, and it was just so stupid. And that plot twist literally made this book go from maybe a 2.5, 3 star to a half of a star, a 1 star. And I looked on Goodreads and everyone else has the same issue with it as I did. It was unnecessary. It was stupid. There was no point. It didn't make sense. It was just so out of place. So number 2 is a book I actually don't have with me, but that is Runes by Edna Walters. I read this book, I don't know, sometime early this year, and it's another one of those chosen one type tropes where basically the main character is an average teenage girl, and then some weird suspicious stuff starts happening. A weird boy moves in next door. Who could he be? Then they turn out to be magical beings, and I don't really remember too much in the plot, and I really don't want to get into it that much. But I got this book for free on Amazon. It was having a free ebook deal. I hated the main character. This book was unoriginal at best. There was nothing really redeemable about it. It was I was expecting, I wasn't expecting the next literary masterpiece going into this, but I was expecting maybe something I could hold on to that made it a light, kind of lighthearted read, nothing to take super seriously. No. I can't even honestly tell you one redeemable thing about this book because I hated it. I just remember finishing it and just being like, oh, there were so many like typos in the book too, and it wasn't like an arc of the book. It was like a finished copy, and they spelled the main character's name wrong like 3 times. And I'm like, what the fuck? Did this not get proofread at all? There was just so many pacing issues. There was so many issues with the characters. There was so many issues with the side characters just being stereotypes and just, oh. I think this is like a super long series too, and I have literally no desire to pick up the next book because like this book left off on like a super plot twist, like super cliffhanger-y ending, and I literally, the moment I finished that book, I was like, thank God I'm done with this, because I have no desire to pick up the next book. I didn't even have any desire to read the synopsis of the next book to figure out what happened, or to read a review of the next book to figure out what happened. I was so uninvested in this story. So number 3 is a sort of beloved series here in BookTube. It's like one of the ones that people either love it or they hate it, and that would be the second book in the selection series, The Elite by Kiera Cass. I read this book and oh, I hated it. I hated it. Apparently, I just can't get into super lighthearted, just kind of casual, fun series to read, because that's what the Rune series was for a lot of people. I feel like a lot of people just kind of read it because they didn't want like a super heavy story. They just wanted kind of something quick to pass the time. And that's what a lot of people like about the selection series, is that they're not really like super heavy stories that you get like emotionally invested in. It's basically The Bachelor / Bachelorette meets a dystopian novel, but I could not with this main character. First off, I can't deal with the fact that her name is America Singer and she is a singer. This is one of those ones where like her name's America, but like everyone else had fairly average names, and I'm like, stop trying to make your main character a special snowflake. Oh, it irritates me to no end, but that's another video for another day. Anyway, this main character, this bitch though, she was not only like, I love this one guy, but now I love this other guy. I'm gonna string both of them along because I can't figure out what's going on. The entire like book, and I assume the series in general, but this entire book revolved around her going, I like this guy, no, I like him, no, I like him, no, I like him, but now I can't choose. When there's like war and like everything is falling apart around them, she's just like, which boy do I choose? I could not stand that. Also, the world building was fairly shoddy. There wasn't really anything original about it. I just was not invested in the series. Now, if you like the series because they're lighthearted and whatever, more power to you. I don't think I'm going to read this the last book because I just don't have any desire to figure out who she ends up with. I'm almost positive I know who she ends up with. Just the fact that there's a spin-off series on this one now. I could not with this book. I was just angry reading it, and I shouldn't be angry reading a book, but I was. And number 2 is kind of goes with the original theme of this video, and that is a book I'm disappointed with, not necessarily a book I hate, because I did not hate this book. I think I gave it a 3.5 star, and that is Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell. And before you guys lynch me, because I know this is like a favorite here on BookTube, like I said, I didn't hate this book. I just was disappointed with it because it got overhyped, and I think it just fell victim to that. I had hyped it up as this super awesome, like, the best book you'll ever read is basically what BookTube told me it was, and then when I read it, or I listened to it via audiobook, I was just kind of, meh. And once again, as I've said a million times before, I find very few audiobooks I really truly like, and I always end up rating the story lower than I would have rated it if I had read it, I feel. So maybe if I reread the book, I might give it a higher rating. I just had an issue with Kath as a main character. She felt like Rainbow Rowell was trying really, really hard to make her awkward and quirky and relatable. I don't know, there was just something about it that it just felt like she was trying too hard with this character to make her awkward and like, look at me, I'm awkward and Tumblr and relatable and ha ha ha. Like, it felt like she was trying really hard with this character, and that just kind of put me off and made her less relatable in my opinion. Like I said, don't lynch me because I did enjoy this book. I just didn't enjoy it as much as other people seem to. And I haven't read any of her other books. Oh, that's not true. I read Carry On. And I liked Carry On loads better than I liked Fangirl. But I also like fantasy like 1,000 times more than I like contemporary, so that was probably also why. Also, the snippets of Carry On or any of her other Simon Snow fanfiction in between the chapters of Fangirl got kind of boring and kind of tedious, especially because after reading Carry On and seeing that none of those tidbits from Carry On actually made it in the story, I was like, there is no point. And number one, which is I'm sure on everyone's list this year, is Harry Potter and the Cursed Child by J.K. Rowling and a slew of other authors. I've done a review, which I'm honestly considering redoing, because in that review I was like, it's pretty good, it's not too bad, it's nostalgic, and yeah, if you just go into it with an open mind, etc., etc. But that's not how I feel about this book anymore. The more and more I think about this book, the more and more it pisses me off. The more and more I'm just like, I cannot believe how disappointed I was in this book. And a lot of people are like, but it's a screenplay, it's not a book, you have to watch the play, it's so much better. And while I agree, the play is probably loads better than this book is what we were given. This book is what the masses will end up enjoying. Not everyone can go afford to watch the play on Broadway. Not everyone lives in an area where the play will even be produced. So the majority of people will only get the story in this format. And if this format is what is so disappointing, then I'm sorry, that just means that this was overall a disappointment. I did love Scorpius as a main character. Scorpius all the way. I love the fact that they gave Draco finally some of the redemption he deserved, and the fact that, he really didn't have a choice in any of the stuff that was going on. It just felt like poorly written fan fiction, and I know that's the way a lot of people have described this book, but this is really the only way you can describe it. It just wasn't Harry Potter. This was my number one disappointment of 2016. I would not be surprised if it is the number one disappointment for a lot of people. So those were the top 5 books I was disappointed by in 2016. Let me know in the comments down below some books you were disappointed by. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!